And hello again, everybody. I'm Rick Sanchez, and this is RT America. We learned yesterday on this show that the Israelis were on a secret mission in Gaza. The secret operation went bad. When it went bad, the IDF resorted to open gunfire, which caused the Palestinians to fire back, which caused the Israelis to send in warplanes and attack helicopters and even tanks. Because the first casualty of any battle is always the truth, we thought you should know what actually happened. It's not our place to argue causality or intent, merely to report the facts that you and I deserve to hear as Americans, facts which for some reason you simply tend to not hear about, especially in stories like this from other cable news outlets. Whether America wants to be involved or paying for endless conflicts like the ones in the Middle East is up to Americans. But as an American, you and I should know the story well enough to be able to make that decision. That's important. For example, do you know how many wars we're actually in right now? Can you name the countries? Let me help. Officially, we're in Afghanistan, we're in Iraq, we're in Libya, we're in Pakistan, we're in Somalia, we're in Yemen, and then, of course, there's the Gaza border. Do you know how much money that alone is costing you? Look, regardless of your position or who you favor, this is a number you should know. As an American taxpayer, you are giving $3.7 billion a year to Israel. That comes out to $10.1 million every single day. Look, this is certainly not to impugn Israel both as an impressive democracy and a very important ally. It's simply to state facts that you should know about the next time you hear that there's another battle in the Middle East that you're essentially paying for. You should know how much money it's costing you, us. No topic, when discussed fairly and accurately, should be considered taboo. That is why we, on this newscast, have made a commitment to bringing you stories, especially those about endless wars and how much money we are spending on them. Unvarnished reporting. I'm Rick Sanchez. This is RT America, and it is time to do news again. And we begin, though, with what many Americans are starting to see as a policy of endless wars, endless spending. Doesn't matter who's in the White House or who's in Congress, whether they're Republicans or Democrats. This topic seems to be treated sometimes by us here at home as if it's unspeakable to even question it. Should it be? And why? First of all, ideology. As Americans, we're consumed with the notion of American might. Is it our God-given right to send our military anywhere on the planet? Is the doctrine of American armed exceptionalism something that maybe we should rethink a little bit based on cost, if nothing else? You tell me. And there's this. I'm reporting to you tonight from essentially our nation's capital. We're just blocks from the White House, for example. Here in Washington, D.C., whether you walk or whether you drive around, you will see for yourself the very visible and entrenched power of the arms lobby and its allies in the Pentagon and in Capitol Hill. And here's what's interesting about that. That part of the story, it's all about money. And it's all about economic dependency. By the way, take a look at this chart. See this chart? Every president campaigns as anti-endless wars, pro-peace, anti-nation building, whether it's President Bush or President Obama, President Trump. And then when they get in office, it never quite works out that way, does it? And speaking of Mr. Trump, who criticized both Presidents Bush and Obama on this regard, he's spending more than anybody when it comes to foreign military sales. In fact, here's the chart. You see it over here? It was at 16.3 and now 27.5. That's a 13% increase. Here's tonight's special focus. Are Americans starting to ask better questions about our military actions and our spending? Here's RT's Caleb Maupin.
veterans are the favorite cause of pundits, politicians, and anyone else who wants to appear patriotic. Across America, there is no shortage of Support Our Troops bumper stickers, flag waving, and praise for the military.
We remember all those who made the ultimate sacrifice for our nation.
Who gave their last breath.
Died in a distant land, fighting terror.
Gave everything for family, country, God, and freedom.
We owe you our respect.
Our veterans are a national treasure.
Their sacrifice will not be in vain.
But all that bombastic praise and expression of gratitude doesn't exactly translate to a good life. Studies show that veterans of the War on Terror are among the least likely to be able to afford a home once they return to the United States. That's right. Those who've risked their lives in conflicts around the world are among those who struggle the most for basic needs like shelter.
With housing, obviously veterans are going to face, a whole host of related challenges combined with that, all the way from employment to legal situation but the general perception among the population when you have 22 veteran suicides a day is that veterans don't make particularly good employees. I'm tempted to say something about PTSD and combat, but it's really somewhat deeper than that. And a big part of what my generation of veterans is facing in the United States today, particularly unique combination of mental health issues that come out of the unique nature of the occupations of Iraq and Afghanistan, and the treatment that we get from the VA, as I've experienced myself, where they'll push pills rather than actual effective treatment.
The trauma suffered by many veterans takes its toll on all of society. Just recently, a former U.S. Marine gunned down 12 people in a California bar.
Sheriff, we heard he may be suffering from PTSD. Did your crisis team have anything like that?
I understand that was part of the discussion when the deputies went out to the call with the crisis team that felt he might be suffering from PTSD, basing that the fact he was a veteran and had been in the Corps.
The War on Terror has had a massive humanitarian cost. The latest study puts the death toll at around 500,000, 500,000. But the authors of the study admit that it's actually much larger.
An additional large number of people have died in these wars by indirect means. Researchers suggest that in recent conflicts, for every one direct death, there are at least 4 other indirect deaths.
Not surprisingly, among veterans, many are starting to ask, is all this bloodshed really helping?
A lot of veterans coming home are starting to understand that these wars were fundamentally illegitimate, that the sacrifices that we made were not made just in vain, but not even in a righteous cause, but for the perpetuation of the current system of governance, of statism that we live under throughout the world, where people in charge get to treat people who aren't like property. The perception of the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan has definitely changed over time here in the United States. I think just a matter of going, yeah, we can admit now that we were lied to, that we were taken advantage of as a people so badly and being convinced to support these invasions and occupations.
So I want to bring Caleb back in to ask him this question that maybe we all should be asking. And think about this. Are we in a situation where the wars are causing us to spend more? Or is it that we're spending and that's why we're creating more wars? Here's Caleb.
This is like the oldest story in the book. Back in 1935, a retired Marine Corps General, Smedley Butler, he wrote a book, an expose called War is a Racket, about how these military corporations, even way back then, when the military budget was so much smaller, were making money hands over foot. War is big business. It's about profits. At this point, we're spending $681 billion on our military. And it's not just our veterans who are losing out. At this point, the roads are not being properly paved, water's not being properly purified, the infrastructure of the United States is a wreck. I mean, what is going on here?
But you know what? Look, as an American, I want to be proud of our military. I want to know that I have people who are willing to defend my country if and when we are attacked or we're really seeing a serious threat. How do we find that balance between trying to play this correctly and not allowing ourselves to be kind of used, as you seem to be intimating we are?
Well, you know, I remember my grandparents and how they would tell me about the Second World War and how that was just, you know, a mobilization of the whole population in alliance with Russia, in alliance with Britain to defeat fascism. It was a totally different story. People trusted the leadership and they went out, and it was just a completely different situation. But I feel like so many Americans have become cynical. It seems like every time we turn around, you turn on American mainstream media, and they're talking about some country on the other side of the world where people are just so oppressed and we just have to go in and rescue them. And then if you follow up and you look at the track record, the people are worse off. Look at Libya, for example. Things have gotten so bad since the intervention there that people are getting on rafts and fleeing. Iraq, Afghanistan, these situations don't make people better off. I think a lot of people are quite cynical and frustrated.
Caleb, good points all. Thank you so much. We appreciate your time.